What's up, everybody, Demon back, and welcome to the next episode of Godzilla Explained. This time we are going to be talking about the Godzilla Heisei timeline, and instead of talking about, we are more of going to be fixing the Godzilla Heisei timeline, because I have a theory that completely throws everyone else's out the window and makes it all perfect. So, let's get into that, shall we? And starting off the Godzilla Heisei timeline, just like always, or mostly always, is Godzilla 1954, Gojira. Now, of course, we're going to be talking about the Japanese cuts of these films, because those ones are the ones that keep continuity, whereas the American English cuts kind of throw that out the window. So, here is the Japanese continuity timeline for Godzilla Heisei series. Now, we go from Gojira, we have a 30-year break, and then we have Godzilla 1984. Now, this is, everyone knows that. It's pretty standard. It's a direct sequel. There is no reference to any of the Showa films. That's all thrown out the window, other than, of course, the original, the 54 movie. So that's the only one that's kept, and then we continue with the timeline. We get Godzilla vs. Biollante, and no one argues. That's how it goes. Now, here is the big one. Here's the one that throws everything off balance. That is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Now, the thing with this movie that sets it apart from the rest is that it has time travel involved. Time travel that screws up the continuity in most people's eyes, because we have a couple characters from the future, the far, far future, go back to the past. They meet up with the people in, I believe, 91. They discuss what to do about Godzilla, and then they go back to the 40s. They go back to World War II, so they predate Godzilla 54. They actually go back, they erase a Godzillasaur's body, send it to the ocean, and bada bing, bada bang, no Godzilla, right? Or at least that's how it claims it goes in the movie. Now, here's what a lot of people don't understand, is what Godzilla did they erase? Did they erase the one from 84 and Biollante, or did they erase the one from 54? That is the question everyone wants to know, and I say they erased neither. Now, I know that kind of sounds confusing, right? Didn't they say in the movie that they erased Godzilla? Yeah, they did. I think something went wrong. I don't think what they wanted to happen, happened. Here's why. If they erase Godzilla 54, right, then that would mean that the final film in the Heisei series, Godzilla vs. Destroya, is completely thrown off, because that is also another sequel to Gojira, having Emiko return, talking about Serizawa directly, making super direct references to the Oxygen Destroyer, having a monster that was born from the 54 movie, talking about Godzilla 54. It can't happen. That cannot happen. That Godzilla cannot be erased. Well, then a lot of people say, well, what about the 84 Biollante Godzilla? That's clearly the one they erased, right? No, because then in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, their explanation for how Space Godzilla got there comes from Biollante. They make reference to Biollante in multiple movies, or at least in that movie, and in that movie, that throws that theory out the window. So a lot of people are like, it's bad writing, it's bad writing. True, it probably is bad writing, but here's how we fix it, okay? All we have to do is say, no, they didn't erase Godzilla, they tried, and it failed. So here's what actually happened. Number one, here's the first theory I have. They created Godzilla. Now, I know this might sound a little weird, but think about it. Godzillasaur's dead on whatever island that was. Okay, the Godzillasaur's dead, alright? It's been killed by the soldiers. Now all it needs is to be mutated and turned into Godzilla. So they know a nuclear bomb test is going to go off on this island. So they pick him up and throw him in the ocean. Well, that would create a paradox right there. See, they couldn't do that. They're back in time in order to erase Godzilla. They can't erase Godzilla, because then they wouldn't have had the ability to go back in time to erase Godzilla. You see how that works? It's a paradox. It cannot happen. But if they created Godzilla, if Godzilla was always meant to wind up on the bottom of the ocean, this makes perfect sense. So here's how you could explain it. So they did originally go back in time to erase Godzilla from that island, because, he was going to get created on that island, or at least that's what they thought, because a nuke was going to go off on it. So they pick him up, put him in the ocean, and then in the ocean, this is where he was always turned into Godzilla. Because they went back in time, this is how it always happened, is that he was in the bottom of the ocean, some sort of nuclear radiation, they talk about nuclear waste, turns him into Godzilla. So this nuclear waste that turns him into Godzilla, this nuclear radiation that comes from somehow, somewhere, turns him into Godzilla. That is why in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, when the nuclear sub is down there to turn the Godzillasaur into Godzilla, Godzilla's already hanging out down there at the bottom of the ocean. He walks forward, hits the sub, blows up. This is the same Godzilla from Godzilla 1984 and Godzilla vs. Biollante. They created this Godzilla. So he existed from then, and then he goes back into the ocean. He just happens to be there, same place, same time, as the submarine crashes into him. Bang, that's why he grows bigger. That's why he's a bigger, meaner Godzilla, is because now he's been mutated again, which is why he's got even more abilities, like even stronger, all this stuff. So that's one explanation, is that they created the Godzilla from 84 all the way to Destroya. Or they didn't erase / create either Godzilla. They did not erase the 54 Godzilla, and they did not erase the 84 Godzilla. Instead, they picked up the body of a Godzillasaur who was never going to turn into Godzilla. For whatever reason, even though the Dorads turned into Godzilla, or even though the Dorads turned into Ghidorah, which means that a nuke did eventually go off on that island, for whatever reason, because this Godzilla was dead probably, because the Godzillasaur was already dead, he couldn't mutate and turn into Godzilla. So they instead picked up the body of that Godzillasaur, dropped it off in the ocean, thinking that he's going to turn into, you know, this massive radiation monster on the island, not realizing that because Godzilla's always been slightly aquatic, he will thrive in the ocean. He will heal better in the ocean. Something like that will happen. Now this Godzillasaur will mutate with the nuclear radiation, turning into Godzilla that we see in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and the Ren, and then through there. So that is the three Godzillas theory. That is the second theory, and that is the one that I like a lot more. Because, you know, the other theory is just too convenient, you know? It's too convenient for Godzilla to be in the same place in the same time as the submarine, however many years later. It's too convenient for that to have happened. So I prefer to think about the three Godzilla theory, where they didn't erase Godzilla 54, they didn't erase 84, even though they tried. Instead, they erased a whole new Godzilla and created a whole new Godzilla, and that is the Godzilla we stick with through the rest of the Heisei series. That is the theory that I like the most. That's the one that I'm going to stick with. So, moving on from here, we have Godzilla vs. Mothra. Movie's fairly simple, nothing really happens that can mess up the timeline. Then we have Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, fairly simple. Godzilla's son's introduced. What else happens in that movie? Godzilla absorbs the soul of Fire Rodan. Now he has the Spiral Ray. That's all that happens. Then in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, here's the one that references Biollante when they're talking about the creation of Space Godzilla. They say he could have come from the cells of Biollante, or he could have come from the cells of Mothra, because at the end of Godzilla vs. Mothra, Mothra drops Godzilla off into the ocean, then flies up to stop a meteor, meaning that she has Godzilla cells on her. So they give two explanations, meaning that clearly both movies are in the same timeline with this movie, and a lot of people just say that's bad writing. I say that's because they erased the wrong Godzilla. So they are referring to Godzilla vs. Biollante. This isn't a writing mistake. That's just because that's a different Godzilla. And then we get the final one, Godzilla vs. Destroya, which really ruins everyone's theory who says, okay, well, I guess we can just assume that they erased the 54 Godzilla and then the timeline's fixed, right? Well, not at all, because Godzilla vs. Destroya really throws back to 54. The whole movie is based around the 54 movie, which is why you know that both had to happen in this continuity for this continuity to be the way it is, which means that Godzilla 1954, 84, all the way up have all happened in this timeline, further proving my theory that there are three Godzillas, not two. And of course, because Godzilla dies at the end of Godzilla vs. Destroya, we are left with Junior and possibly Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Biollante and 84. Now, if you want to subscribe to the other theory where they just created the Heisei Godzilla, that would mean that this is the same Godzilla who dies, which just means that he's gone. He's poofed out of existence, melted down, gone, which leaves us with just Junior. So, interesting there. Now, some people might be wondering, where does 85 fit into the timeline? It doesn't. That fits into the 56 timeline, and that movie's a direct sequel to King of the Monsters, and you really can't say that it has any sequels because, like I said, the American continuity doesn't really exist at all. I mean, sure, it's there, it's built upon the Japanese continuity, it's dubbed movies, but they do a way worse job at keeping continuity in the American films and the English films than they do in the Japanese, so there's that. And if anyone's wondering, no, the Gamera Heisei series doesn't fit in there. Just because it says Heisei, that's just the film era. And yes, also, I know that 84 wasn't technically in the Heisei era, it was technically in the Showa era, but it's considered a Heisei series film. And also, for one last clarification here, the Rebirth of Mothra series does not fit into this continuity at all. That's a standalone series. It doesn't have anything to do with the events of Godzilla, Heisei, or Showa. So, thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you guys can now leave this video saying, I understand how the Heisei continuity happened. I hope all your questions are cleared up. I believe it was Nightmare Goji who requested the Godzilla Timeline Explained videos. So here's your part 2. Sorry it took me so long to get it out to you guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. D-Man out.